Tahlequah Janela, and Jigato Woj. So what I said was I'm Kevin Stretch, and I live in Tahlequah, and I'm excited to be here, and that I have showered today. So Jessi McEver, Cherokee Nation citizen, is an independent film producer, impact strategist, and publicist with a history of working closely with Native American filmmakers, tribes, studios, and changemakers in Hollywood. She is focused on building power for Native American communities through inclusive representation on and off screen, challenging existing systems as well as building pathways and loving spaces for the next generation of Native creators. She's a mother of two fierce souls. She is a pun enthusiast. I got you right there. And an eternal optimist. While the filmmaking industry is changing, the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in Hollywood are constrained. Native American representation in television and film is undeniably on the rise. Today, Jessica will discuss the industry landscape, her career, and answer questions. Is this a moment or a movement that will last beyond our generation? Jessi McEver.
Hi, everyone. Move this down. I'm a little bit shorter than my friend here. Hi, how are y'all? Osio, Oganali, Jessica, Jessi McEver, Dogwadoa. Hello, a warm and affectionate hello to my friends. My name is Jessica McEver. A lot of people call me Jessi. Apologies to the language learners here for enduring my toddler-like introduction. I am working to learn the language myself. So thank you all for being here, and thank everyone for tuning in. It's an honor to be with you today. It truly is. It's been a dream to speak at the holiday of mine for a long time, and I can't believe I'm here. Crazy. So I'm a producer, a publicist, and an impact and culture change strategist, and I'll get into all the different work that I'm doing, but I just wanted to share that I got my start working for Cherokee Nation businesses. I was an intern at Cherokee Nation Cultural Tourism. I don't know if anyone's worked at the gift shop or any of the museum locations or any of the casinos. About 10 years ago, I was walking around with a camera and interviewing people and disrupting folks' days, but that's where I got my start, and that's where I really got interested in telling different stories through film, through television, through video, through documentary work. I was overwhelmed with how many stories that there were to tell. I was involved in the very early days of OCO TV. I did the original screen test for OCO, which was cool, and was able to work on that show. That work led me to do independent documentary work. I did a number of independent projects. One of them was a documentary on the Tahlequah Indian boarding school. And another, Love and Fury, that I did with Sterling Harjo is on Netflix right now. You can stream it. It's a cool documentary about art and music and culture. That work, my career is nonlinear, and I won't go into all the different paths that I went to. I went in some different ways, but my most recent position was with Illuminative as the Director of Pop Culture and Media, where I served for nearly 3 years. In that position, I worked with just about every major studio and streamer out there. You name them, I worked with them. Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Apple, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Sony. It was a wonderful position. I worked with USC Norman Lear Center and some other researchers, Nielsen and USC Annenberg Center for Inclusion. Through that role, I was introduced to a lot of different people, and in that role and the work that I do now, I considered myself to be an opportunity expansionist. So getting into rooms and telling people that including Native Americans in your production or your project isn't just about cultural authenticity and what could go wrong and we have to get everything right. It's about creative expansion and what's possible when you include a diverse array of voices into creative projects. So yeah, that's how I started. And right now I'm working as a producer. One of the projects that I'm working on right now is an adaptation of New York Times bestseller Robin Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. I'm super excited for this project. We're turning it into a narrative film. It's a dream come true. I'm working with Bird Running Water, Heather Ray Priest, Jeff Orlowski Yang, and Exposure Labs. Very excited. It's going to be a few years. I mean, we're still breaking the script, so stay tuned. But whenever we get that done, it'll be amazing. In that role, I'm also working as an impact consultant. And so with this role, I'm working with a group of indigenous knowledge keepers from Potawatomi and Haudenosaunee Nation to make sure that the book that we are adapting is touching on different cultural points in the most authentic way, and that we're giving back to the community in creative ways. So throughout the production, I'll be looking to include different voices and different people and in any way that I can. So it's great work, and I love doing it. This isn't the first time that I've served in this type of capacity. I worked with a group of consultants on Marvel's Echo, which is streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu. Thanks, Ayo. That's my son. He likes that show. But that was an incredible position to be in and incredible work. It started off with just working with a few consultants, and we were just going to review some scripts and give feedback. But through about 2.5 years of relationship building and advocacy, we were able to expand that engagement to touch every area of production. We went beyond just giving some feedback to giving actual notes and implementing the stories from Choctaw Nation onto the screen. We were able to touch every department and talk to every department head about how they were engaging with the content and move beyond this limited scope of what could go wrong and how to get it exactly right to what is creatively possible. So it was a lot of fun. It was great. And through advocacy, we were able to get the entire show dubbed in the Choctaw language. It was completely sponsored by Marvel, which was, incredible. We had a screening at Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma in the name of community reciprocity. So before it was screened anywhere, we took it back to that community and made sure that we had everyone's approval and feedback before it was shown with the world. So it's great work, and it's been cited as the gold standard for this type of inclusion when it comes from the Television Academy, from Disney and Marvel. So I'm very proud of that project, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I hope you get a chance to. It's still streaming. Yeah, and I'm pursuing this type of work with other projects, and I'm under a mountain of NDAs, so I can't tell you what else I'm working on, but I'm trying to implement this standard of inclusion and engagement through different productions that are going on right now. I also work as a publicist. So I work with filmmakers to get their word out about their film and to promote them as artists. This week I'm heading off to Toronto, to the Toronto International Film Festival. I'll be representing 3 films on the ground. I'm very excited about that. One of them is from director Ikswaji Shane McSabi. He's an emerging voice in the horror space. I can't wait for everyone to see his work, but this will be his world premiere of The Beguiling. I'll also be representing 2 other films from international indigenous communities, so it's such an honor to be able to celebrate those artists and to get their work seen. And I'm looking for new ways to market films and to get them seen, because what good is a film if you can't see it and if nobody knows about it? So I'm looking for new ways to do that. I have a history in my career of working with publicists and researchers and filmmakers to create cultural moments to spark interest. One of them was in last October, right before Lily Gladstone's announcement as a Oscar nominee. So I think at this time I was at a harness gathering, which is an organization that was started by America Ferrera and Wilmer Valderrama, who was Fez on 1970 show. They have a group of social justice workers and organizers and filmmakers in Hollywood. So I was with them and retreating with them, and I had a conversation with Stacy Smith, who is the director of research at USC Annenberg Center for Inclusion. And she was sharing with me about her experience at Cannes Film Festival, where Killers of the Flower Moon had their world premiere. She was sitting with all of the actresses and just thinking about, wow, I'm never going to see these faces again. This is their moment, and this is it. And it's incredible that I'm here, but she felt so sad for everyone. And so we unpacked that and we started wondering, like, well, what are the numbers when it comes to career sustainability in top grossing films in Hollywood? What does that look like? And we know and we feel in our hearts that Lily's potential nominee will be historic, but is it really? What's the data behind it? And that inspired an original study, which is online now. You can follow them at USC Inclusionists. I think that's their handle on Instagram. But she produced a study called the Lily Gladstone Effect, and we looked at the top grossing 1,600 films from the last 16 years. I think the dates were 2007 to 2022. And we looked to see how many films had a Native American lead that was an actress. And I kind of want to just turn this over to the audience. Do you know, does anybody have a guess at how many films had a Native American actress as a lead during this time? Do you want to guess, Ayo? One. One other film out of 1,600 films had a Native American actress as a lead. So to have Lily Gladstone come in and double that number, historic, incredible. Let's give Lily like a round of applause. She is phenomenal in so many ways. We also looked at the other roles, and 65% of the roles that had Native Americans in there were non-consequential to the plot line, and the rest were background actors. So to have this momentum and to have Lily take the stage in the way that she did is historic, and it is already opening so many doors, and she's already opening so many doors. So I can't say enough about her and her role. It was absolutely incredible. So from that study, we were able to seed this talking points with a couple different stars, and we were able to have Spike Lee tweet out, nominate Lily. I mean, it created a small like wave of, oh my gosh, this is a really big deal, and we should nominate her. I just want to say too that she was nominated just as much for her performance as anything else. It was absolutely incredible. But it was good to have that awareness out there so people knew that this was a historic moment that we were living in. And then last March, I was fortunate enough to share the stage with Lily Gladstone and Stacy Smith, the Director of Research at USC Center Annenberg for Inclusion, where we talked about this study and talked about how Lily's role has been changing the world and how it's opened doors. And I was able to share data from my friends at Nielsen that since Killers of the Flower Moon had been streaming on Apple TV, it had garnered billions with a B of minutes viewed on that platform alone. That has generated an insane amount of income for that company. So, I mean, it's incredible. So when you think about when the powers that be, the people that greenlight things, they often say there's no market for Native-centric content. Who's going to show up? Native Americans aren't even here. Who's going to watch this? Her role, her performance, that film alone proves that there is a market for this content and people want to see it and people tune in. That's why these moments are important and that's why these films are important. And so outside of that, I also worked as an impact and culture change strategist. I'm working to make the systems in Hollywood more equitable and more accessible. So I work as a thought partner and a consultant for studios. Again, I'm under NDA, so I can't say who, but they're the big ones. So I challenge the systems that they have. More often than not, these studios have what they call pipeline programs, where they're working to get people from marginalized communities into the studio system. So I work to fortify those systems to make sure that they are accessible to Native American candidates and that they are staffed with Native American candidates. And I work with them to build new ways to connect with young Native American filmmakers. So two of the programs that I helped to direct, one was a producers program in partnership with Netflix Studios. This was a year-long program. We had over 300 applicants to this program, which is incredible. That's 300 individuals who are wanting to be a film producer. We only had the budget for 7. We extended it to 8. So we had 8 producers over the course of the year, and we connected them to mentors, and we helped develop their project from the budget to how they're going to run it through the festival, how they're going to publicize, how they're going to pitch it, how they're going to get it funded. At the end of the program, we put them in a room with a bunch of studio executives and people from the acquisition field and pitched their projects. And it was awesome to see. It was awesome to see everyone grow throughout the course of the year. One of my participants walked away with an agent, which was awesome. We didn't have that before. And several of them are collaborating on each other's projects. One of my producers created Molly of Denali, and she connected with Kakama, and Kakama, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting your last name, but in the next season of Molly of Denali, Molly goes to Hawaii, which is where Kakama was from. So it was wonderful to see the different points of collaboration and inspiration, and to see their confidence grow and their projects get developed. Another program that I worked on was the Episodic Directors Program in partnership with Amazon Studios. This program was unique because we provided hands-on experience. This program was designed by Heather Ray Priest. She was a producer on Outer Range Season 2. We were able to take emerging mid-career level directors and bring them on to Outer Range Season 2 throughout the course of that season being shot. And they received hands-on mentorship and experience. The studio, Amazon, was so moved by this program and how the directors' lives were changed and their confidence were built that they've committed to working with these directors until each director is able to be accredited by the studio themselves and embedded into the studio system and to take on their own episodes. That's incredible. I mean, if you think about how many directors are out there that are directing television right now, it's less than 10. This adds 5 more. When you have people in a decision-making capacity, that brings other people up with them. That's why these programs were important. This is the work that I do to try to keep it going. The more that we can have creatives from Native American descent in decision-making capacities on productions, the more people come up with them, the more doors are open, the more roles are created. So that's the work that I like to do there. And some of the work that I am doing in the studio system is a bit of harm reduction, which is going through and cleaning up messes that are made and giving people a talking to whenever they need it, and trying to encourage people to think more abundantly and a little bit more carefully and intentionally in the future. When I started doing this work, I was getting last-minute phone calls constantly of, oh my gosh, I need a land acknowledgement, or oh my gosh, we've developed this television show. We didn't talk to a single Native American. What are we gonna do? And so over relationship building and planting these seeds of thinking differently, these calls started to change. I had a phone call last year from a studio, and I was like, oh great, here we go again. They're gonna ask for another land acknowledgement. They're gonna ask for me to like check some sort of box or whatever. But this was a different phone call. They told me that they had hired a Native American producer from the tribe in which the script was based off of. Amazing. They had also hired a writer to come onto the staff to help develop the television show in an authentic and creatively expansive way. They had identified whose land they were shooting on by themselves. Huge. They had invited members of the tribe to come out to production to open the production up with a blessing, and were paying them for their services. They had opened up shadowing spots to members of that tribe so that they could get hands-on experience and learn. Huge. So, I mean, change, systemic change, the space that I'm working in, it's slow. It's not about the next award or the next film that's going to be out. It's about planting these seeds of abundant thinking and giving people the tools to do it themselves. I quit writing land acknowledgements for studios about a month in because I just had an aha moment. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are never going to learn if I keep doing it for them, you know? So, you know, it's been a lot of showing people the tools and how to figure out whose land they're shooting on, telling people how to move beyond a land acknowledgement and why, you know, why are you doing this? Is it performative? Maybe there's something else we can do, but getting people to think creatively and critically about what they're doing. Yeah, so it's great work. It's great work. Another research study that just came out that I directed was with Illuminative. It's and USC Norman Lear Center Media Impact Project. and it measures the impact that Native American representation had on audiences in scripted television from 2021 to 2023. And if you recall, 2021 was, at this point in history, we had Rutherford Falls streaming on Peacock. This was the first season of Reservation Dogs. And we also had Yellowstone that was streaming on Paramount. There are so many bits of different research in that particular study. We did a character analysis and linguistic analysis to see how Native American characters are othered through different types of speech. We measured how stereotypes may or may not have shifted. But the juiciest part of this study was the audience impact study between those who consumed Reservation Dogs in Rutherford Falls and those who watched Yellowstone. The audiences that watched Rutherford Falls and Reservation Dogs, which are two shows that are generated from a Native American perspective, they are created by Native American people. Those audiences are more likely to support policies and stances that benefit Native American communities. They know what ICWA is. They know about the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis. They are wanting to talk about changing mascots. They are looking up where their local tribes are and getting involved. Like, if you consume that type of content, whether you are or not a Native American, you are more likely to support the communities and you're more likely to get involved. They're primed for activism. Whereas the people who watched Yellowstone, which is a show that is not derived from a Native American perspective, that audience is less likely to support policies. They actually think that Native Americans have it too good. They don't care about mascots. They want Indigenous Peoples Day to be Columbus Day. They don't know about what ICWA is. They don't want to look it up. They don't care. Native Americans have it too good. Point blank, we're moving on. There are more shows to watch. Which is why media and having diverse voices and faces is important. If we want to live in a world where Indigenous sovereignty is recognized, where our rights are recognized as marginalized people, we can't expect that to happen if people don't see us, if they don't care about us. They're not going to care about us if they can't understand us. They're not going to be able to understand or care about us if they don't see us. We need more content out there that is generated from the Native American perspective if we're going to live in a world that's more, equitable and sustainable for all of us. And I don't think it's just about Native Americans either. I think it's everyone that comes from a marginalized community, whether that be LGBTQ and Two-Spirit, Black, Latinx, and Asian Americans as well. We need to start supporting other people's voices and show up for that content. Because it does make a difference, and it's part of this systemic change. It may not, light a light bulb from somebody's head and then go off and get involved, but it takes time, and it takes time to build that sentiment of caring and understanding. So yeah, I think my call to action today is I want people to, start showing up for this content. We have Resball coming out on Netflix in September. Yay! Yay, Resball! This is another historic moment. I think it's the biggest studio budget that's ever been afforded to a Native American director. And it's a phenomenal film. It is like Friday Night Lights on the basketball court. It's incredible. And I want you all to be empowered as viewers and consumers of media and know that there are staffs, hundreds of people who are watching the numbers. They want to know who's tuning into this content, who's watching it, and who's watching it for how long. They're watching you watch the content. So the more that you tune in and show your support, the more likely we are to get more shows and more films like this greenlit. So yeah, that was pretty fast 30 minutes. So I'm gonna pause and we're gonna do Q&A. Yeah, Q&A.
We're gonna use this microphone so the folks watching at home can hear your questions. So.
I forgot what the name is.
This is my son. He likes to try to stump me whenever I'm doing these things.
Who was the one actress, that native lead?
Other than Lily Gladstone?
Yes.
You'd have to look at the study. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it was. That's my dad. He's also stumping me. All right, now it's my daughter's turn.
No. No.
No question? Okay.
Who had a question back here?
On that list of female actors, or a list of actors that were Native American, how many were Native American? How many were female, period?
Oh, okay. I do have that. There were 64 actors that had a sustainable career during this time, so they showed up in multiple different films. Of the 64, 19 were women.
In the arena of Hollywood and bringing recognition to Indigenous people on film, is there work being done to include Indigenous people in film scores, in soundtracks, in movie composition as well?
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's a growing space. There are a handful of composers and musicians of Native American descent that are working in that capacity, and there are more coming up. So, I mean, part of the work that I do is to speak these voices in rooms and to make sure that they're known, and to try to get them working. I mean, a lot of them are already working on their own, which is wonderful. Mato is a composer who worked on Reservation Dogs, and I think he'll be working on one of my documentaries that's coming up, that's shooting this fall. He's also a composer on one of the films that I'm showcasing at TIFF next week. And Samantha Crane is another really talented musician who's also getting into the composition space. I think Kaylin Faye, who was here yesterday, has also started getting into that work as well. So it's growing. It's growing, and there's definitely a need for it. So if you're a musician or whatever, we should talk.
Thank you, Wado. Thank you for your presentation and all the great work you do. I also want to point out it's September 27th when Res Ball is coming out, and they're showing
right.
at some theaters,
That's right.
such as in Oklahoma City, in the Harkins Bricktown, and different major cities throughout the country. But there's so many questions, but I'll try to narrow it down. One is that, especially around the exciting movement and momentum with Native nations, such as seeing Cherokee Nation create this, like film their own divisions and the films that they're producing. So like the significance of sovereignty, Native nation sovereignty in taking a lead, not only the representation, but also where you're saying from perspectives, and also Native nations involvement, such as, Navajo Nation having a film department and making decisions on not only who films on their lands, but being involved with what is produced and navigating that. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about sovereignty in relation to that. There's, of course, a lot of controversy around ethnic identity fraud, pretend Indianism, and issues with representation in that way, which also intertwines with sovereignty, because who decides and recognizes who are people of their nation, and the intricacies of that, and so how do you address that, or in your work, or see that being addressed? And those are the two big whammies I wanted to bring up, but there's always a lot to ask about. Wado, thank you.
Thank you so much, Wado. It's been an incredible time seeing Cherokee Film come up and the Navajo Film Office come up. And I know that there are other tribal nations around the country that are organizing in the same way to get similar incentives. Cherokee Film has been a huge inspiration to a lot of people. We should give them a round of applause. They're doing great work. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's been really incredible to see tribal nations step up and recognize that they do have a seat at the table, and to take that seat at the table and to decide who's shooting on their land and for how long and what projects are coming in and how they're going to be incentivized through those dollars. It's huge. And I will say in the independent film space, I mean, we're always like looking for financing and money. It's really, films are expensive and they're incredibly difficult to get made. So having this creative incentive program that you could stack on top of the state incentive is really wonderful to see. And I'm so happy that that's there. And I hope other tribal nations like follow suit. It would be awesome to see. And I think from the studio side, I think they're starting to recognize the creative possibility when it comes to including Indigenous peoples in front of and behind the camera. And they're starting to understand terms like sovereignty and cultural equity and things like that. It's a slow process, and there are certainly, I mean, Hollywood does not have a great history when it comes to Native American representation, like at all. And it's up until like a very recent point in time where Native American characters on screen move beyond like static plot devices and basic props basically for, you know, Western movies to actual full-fledged characters. So it's something that takes time, and I think it's starting to be recognized, which is really exciting. And on identity is incredibly like tricky subject. And it's one that, I mean, studios are wanting to protect themselves and they're not wanting to misstep. So I think they're doing extra work and working with Native American casting agencies and asking the right questions to ensure that roles that are Native American characters are casted authentically. I don't think anybody's trying to perpetuate pretendianism or anything like that. So, I mean, there are measures and steps being taken to recognize that, but I think it's, you know, it's a slow learning process. And like I said a couple different times already, this systemic work takes quite a bit of time and patience.
Great. I know as someone old enough to have grown up in these spaghetti Western days, very happy to see that turnaround.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Of course, in the back.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So this one's going to be a slightly long-winded question, but so I watched Reservation Dogs, and it was a well-written, entertaining show just to watch, if for no other reason than it was just entertaining. And I know you touched on directors, producers, actors, but to me, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but writing is kind of the most important foundation of anything being
Totally.
entertaining.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a program to produce great writers, great screenplay writers. And even if there was an endless pool, because I know with streaming services especially, they're cutting back on the number of writers. So
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
just in general, things are just getting worse. So how hard, even if you had an endless pool of great writers, how hard is it to get them into those roles, I guess is.
Yeah. I mean, I think you touched on a point that I don't think I got to during my talk, but in Hollywood and in television and film right now, it's incredibly restrictive time, whereas you said the number of staff writers are being cut significantly. And this was going on before the strikes that happened last year. I mean, they striked for a number of reasons, but the streaming bubbles was quite a market disruptor. And the people that are greenlighting and making shows, they're not in a position to take any sort of risk when it comes to community stories. So they're not investing in this type of content, and it's incredibly difficult to get it made, which is why the shows that we do have are so important and so precious. But writers are important. I'm working to get something off the ground. I would love to get it off the ground to support dues for young or emerging writers who are wanting to get into the WGA, the Writers Guild of America. Because as you said, like everything starts on the page. And the more that you have from a Native American perspective, the more Native American characters we will have on screen, which will create more opportunities for Native American actors. So it is important, and I would love to get something off the ground. I'm looking for investors if anybody wants to help me get this going, hint, hint. But yeah, I think you're right. It would be really wonderful to see happen, and it's a needed. One of the things that I try to do on my personal page on Instagram, you're welcome to follow me, it's Jessica McNever. But I try to promote all the different programs that are out there right now. So there's a bunch of writers programs with Disney and Netflix and Amazon, and they have been productive. So Sierra Tello Ornelas, which is one of the 2 Native American showrunners, which is pretty crazy, y'all. Like, there are hundreds of showrunners out there, and we have 2 that are Native American. But Sierra got her start through writing programs at Disney. And Sydney Freeland, who's directing Breast Ball, also got her start in a pipeline program as well. So I think looking for those opportunities and professional development and getting plugged in and expanding your network is the way to go.
I feel like Phil Donahue, or those of you that are old enough to know.
To carry on the technical end, is there any effort to integrate with IATSE and training more Native Americans to be stagehands, to actually run cable and put up sets and do the technical part of filming?
I'm not sure if Cherokee Film is working on that or not. I know they have a list of below-the-line people who do the technical work, who make productions grow. And I know that there are some studios that are interested in developing those programs too, but it's similar to the question of the writers, where it's like, okay, who's gonna start the program to get more people working? So another, plead for investors, hint, hint. But yeah, it would be wonderful to get started. There's certainly a lot of talent out there, and it's just a matter of connecting the dots.
What do you think is the most important part of Native American history or subject that there should be a documentary or film about, but isn't?
Yeah, I think important's a tricky word because I think that's so subjective. I mean, there are different things that are important to all of us. I've dreamed about creating something around Ned Christie for some time. I think that's an incredible story of resistance and patriotism. I think it would be really compelling to see on the screen. There are lots of different points in Cherokee history that I would like to see on the screen, like the Battle of Going Snake with Zeke Proctor. But different things, I think there are, I have a filmmaker friend who's working on in the 1930s, the EPA, it was the livestock reduction policy from the EPA on Navajo reservation. I think that's an incredible story that hasn't been told yet, where the government came in and reduced the livestock that these Navajo people were living on. Just another iteration of genocide. So I think just exploring those themes would be really powerful to see. And I also think it would be great to have a documentary that connects all the different ways in which genocide has happened in the world and is happening today, so that we can all start to see that we're connected. We have one up front. Oh.
That's fascinating that you bring up the Navajo livestock, because I had a roommate my roommates at Fort Lewis. Their grandparents, like they've told me about that. Their grandparents, the government took all of their livestock. Excuse me. So I have two questions. The first one is, do you have any advice for independent Native filmmakers to get, even just a little bit of funding for, small independent projects? And then the second part is, so as with crew work, I know in California it's slowed down very, very it's the aftershock from the strikes, and as a crew worker myself in Oklahoma, I've had to kind of step back to do some consistent work. Do you think that's going to roll over into Oklahoma? You can answer the happy one first. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Thank you. What your first question? funding for independent film. So funding is tricky. Like, I'm an independent filmmaker and I have ideas, and I'm like, even though I've been working in this space for about a little over 10 years now, it's still such an uphill battle. Like, where do you start? There are a number of grants that are available. Firelight Media is great. Vision Maker Media is great. That's another, I think we follow each other on Instagram, but I try to share all of those grant opportunities when I see them come up. So grant money, if you can get one investor, it's easier to get another. So it's just a matter of getting started and getting someone to get that buy-in. I would advise new filmmakers to start small. Start with the short film. They're easier to get funded. They're easier to get made. And once you have that short film and you're able to enter it into the film festival circuit, that's how you get it in front of eyeballs, and you could start selling your feature and get that funded. So starting small and being patient, and you have to be very scrappy. Yeah. Yeah, go to the casino.
No, don't go to the casino a lot.
How long did it take to make Echo, and what was the hardest episode?
Oh, wow. Thank you. That was a very insightful question. Thank you. I worked on, you got to give the mic back. I came on when Echo was already in development, but I worked on that project for 2.5 years. I think it took almost a year to shoot, and then another 8 months or so to edit, quite a bit of time. And the most difficult part of Echo, it was really hard not to talk about, honestly. The NDA was really difficult. It's hard to sign those documents and not be able to share your work. So, but there were other parts that were difficult, just advocating for different points of inclusion. And but I was really lucky. Sydney Freeland was one of the directors of that, and Katrina McKenzie. And we had a Native American executive, Christina King, who was also instrumental in helping us. So it was just a lot of collaboration and getting everyone on the same page. But we all had the same goal, and it was awesome to work on.
In addition to the cattle reduction program for the Navajos, what about the buffalo?
Yeah.
I was not aware earlier.
Yeah, no, that would be, there are so many, I feel like when it comes to Native American centered and generated content, like there's so much out there right now. What an incredible time to be alive. But I feel like it's the tip of the iceberg. Like, I think there are so many stories that have been taken from us, and there are so many stories that haven't been told. So I'm really looking forward to like 10, 20 years from now when there's like a blockbuster from a Native American perspective, you know, and different documentaries that explore all of these different points of history. I think there's an abundance of things to be shared.
Jessi, thank you for your presentation. It's incredible and what you're doing. Just what your life is very inspiring. And you're to be commended for all the work you're doing. Could you talk about a little bit of that just from a personal point of view about you're obviously very motivated as an activist, and then you're also very motivated as a creative. Could you talk a little bit about the engines inside of you that make you go and that drive you to which one of these, you know, one or the other or both at the same time, and just kind of how that works with you?
Yeah. Man, I don't know where to start, and I feel like I'm still like figuring it out. I think that's part of it. One of the mantras that I work from is progress over perfection. So I got rid of the notion of waiting until I'm 100% ready to like pitch a film or to do a documentary. Just go for it. You have to go for it, and you got to believe in yourself, and you have to have a good support system. I think that's another thing. I have a wonderful partner, Mr. Jimmy Reed, right here, and a wonderful family with my father and my kids as well. So I think you have to find a community and find people to support you, and to not wait until you're ready. And you can't wait for permission to do this work. You just have to do it.
We have time for one more question.
So I know recently there was a project to start overdubbing the movie Avengers in Lakota.
Yeah.
Is there more projects in the works for overdubbing other major pictures that have already been released?
Yeah, there'll be, that makes me uncomfortable. There's more that is coming. I can't say. But yeah, there was an aha moment in the dubbing space of like, oh my gosh, we could do this to like every film. How cool. And so there's like funding mechanisms and people that are doing this work and a lot of linguists that are doing this work. So there's going to be more, which is exciting. And so you can check out Star Wars and the Lakota Nation, Finding Nemo, and I think Star Wars 2 is also recorded in the Navajo language. I know Cherokee's doing a lot of work to do a lot of language and film as well, which is really cool. And I maybe something going on there when it comes to dubbing. Can't say. But yeah, I think we're at the beginning of like a really interesting time that's about to happen when it comes to language in mass media, so, which is cool.
Wado, thank you so much for everything that you do and for joining us and speaking with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yay.